Here we are back together again, friends, for another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Marnie is 30 years old. She's had type 1 since she was 17. Today, we're going to talk about the mental side of type 1 diabetes a little bit. We're going to talk about management, some anxiety she had after a tough low. Marnie was embarrassed of her type 1 as a teen, but today she does not feel the same way. All of that and much more right now. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. Are you an adult living with type 1 or the caregiver of someone who is? I'd love it if you would go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and take the survey. When you complete that survey, your answers are used to move type 1 diabetes research of all kinds. So if you'd like to help with type 1 research, t1dexchange.org/juicebox. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink AG1.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes and their MiniMed 780G system, designed to help ease the burden of diabetes management. Imagine fewer worries about missed boluses or miscalculated carbs, thanks to meal detection technology and automatic correction doses. Learn more and get started today at medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. The episode you're listening to is sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. You can get your diabetes testing supplies the same way we do from US Med. You're Marnie. How old are you?
I'm 29, soon to be 30.
Okay. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 17, so I've had diabetes 13 years now.
Wow, look at you. Let me move this here off my whiteboard so I can write things down.
I've made some notes.
You've made notes?
The screen, yeah.
In case you don't remember stuff about yourself?
Yeah, a bit of that, and also to cull the waffling, so I've got like a nice balance. So I've got some nice notes typed up. Okay.
Do you think you're going to be all over the place if you don't have notes?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, just like, some bullet points. I bullet pointed everything, so I'm very organised.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it then. So how old were you? You said you were how old? Like
17. Yeah.
Okay.
17. Yeah, so it was a bit, yeah.
And do you have any other people in your family who have type 1?
Yes, my mum does as well.
Do you know how old she was when she was diagnosed?
It's weird because I've just had a really panicked 20-minute phone call with her before this, where I was like, I need some facts about your mum. So she was 10 when she was diagnosed. So it was the 70s when she was diagnosed.
Mm-hmm. How old is she now?
She is, Mum, 64.
64, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have other siblings?
Yeah, I do. I've got 2 sisters as well, yeah.
Do they have hypothyroidism?
Yes, my younger sister does. She's got thyroid issues. My older sister is absolutely fine. And I'm blind as a bat, so we always joke that I really, really got like the bad genetics in the family.
Your eyesight's not been good your whole life?
Oh, it's terrible. Not my whole life. I'd say sort of early teenage years, it really, really took sort of a nosedive.
What does terrible mean? Can you see your own nose?
No, not anymore, no. Like, I'm very, very short-sighted, so cannot see anything. Like, even my phone, sort of first thing in the morning when I wake up, I have to hold it like an inch away from my nose.
Really?
Tragic, yes.
How
yes.
Do you wear contacts or, like, real thick glasses?
Well, yeah, I've got contacts because my glasses are an obscene amount of thickness, like proper milk bottle bottoms, so, yeah, stick to contact lenses.
What's the professor's name in Harry Potter with the really thick glasses now?
Professor Trelawney.
Trelawney, yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% that vibes when I've got my glasses on. Oh, yeah.
I just figured with your accent, we should just lean right into it.
Oh, yeah.
How about any other medical issues for you?
No, I think me and my sister both started with a bit of vitiligo, which I believe is autoimmune as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've both got that as well. Again, eldest sister, absolutely fine. So just, yeah, but that's about it really from sort of a health point of view.
Okay. So So you weren't really growing up. Were you off to university or off to a job when you were diagnosed? What was happening in your life?
So it was first year of college for us. So it's the 2 years before you head off to your college, university.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the first year that I'd sort of left high school, started college, and yeah, it sort of happened over Christmas, really. So I was very, very, very ill in, I think it was November. I had horrendous flu, and I like to pride myself in I don't really get ill that often. And I remember it just absolutely wiped me out. Couldn't get out of bed. I was so ill. And then that's when the fun diabetes symptoms started slinking up and appearing. So I had a feeling deep down, I think I knew it was diabetes, but I put it off for a very long time, sort of telling anyone that I thought it was. So it was classic weight loss, and it was over Christmas, and I was eating like a little pig. And I was like, oh, look at all this weight falling off me. Oh, this is amazing. To all my friends, and jealous. And then it kind of got to the point where it was end of Christmas, and my mum, I've just spoken to her, and she said she just remembers me getting up in the night to go to the toilet. And obviously her being type 1 diabetic as well, she saw four consecutive nights of me getting up in the night and waking up, going to the toilet. And she sort of told me and was like, look, I don't want it to be this, but I think we need to do a blood meter test on you.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, ever since I was a child, we'd always sort of be like, oh, let's all test our blood sugars with mum's testing kit. And we take it in turns, and I hated it. I'd run away screaming, crying. My sisters loved it. They'd chase me with it, and I would not cooperate. I hated that game where we'd all test our blood sugars, and I never took part in it. And my mum just told me that it literally took her and my stepdad almost pinning me down to do a blood test thing on me at the age of 17. So she said eventually it was just me hyperventilating, laughing, crying, hysterical, and just trying to get a bit of blood out of my finger to do the test. So she said she did the test, and I think it was 28, which is 504
wow.
on the conversion. Yeah. So she was just like, yeah, okay, it's happened. You're diabetic as well. So got me into the doctor's first thing the next day with an urgent appointment. I think they tested me in the morning, and I was 32, which I think is about 570. So straight away it was like, yeah, your mum's got diabetes, you've got diabetes, let's get you to the hospital. And I think I was sent to the hospital, and I wasn't on a drip or anything. And my mum says they didn't say I was in DKA, but I must have had crazy high blood sugars for a couple of months at this point. But I think it was just the thing of, oh, your mum's got diabetes, let's give you a shot of insulin, get you on your way, bye.
That was it?
So, yeah. And I don't remember my mum said the same, no sort of IV, nothing. I just remember sitting at the hospital all day while they sort of gave me a shot of long-acting, gave me a bit of fast-acting, and about tea time, dinner time, they're like, right, well, your mum's diabetic, so she knows what to do, on your way, so just send me home then.
Did your mom know what to do? Was she...
Yes and no, because obviously they didn't have my ratios nailed, didn't know how much long-acting to give me, so I think it was just a bit of a wild guess.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember sort of sitting in my mum's car afterwards, and I had this massive sandwich on my knee, and I was absolutely starving because I hadn't eaten all day. I was just about to take this massive bite, and everyone's like, whoa. You need insulin for that now. And I was like, what? I have to wait to eat this sandwich. So, yeah, I think it was a bit of just sort of hand me back off to my mum and be like, oh, she's the expert. Off you go. We'll see you tomorrow. It's fine. So, yeah, I remember that sort of first night, and she kept coming into my room every other hour, checking my blood sugars, bless her, just kept sort of slinking in and turning on my little nightlight and checking me. Even though I was 17, I could fully have done it myself, but I know that she just
worried.
Wanted to do the best. Yeah.
Geez, when you think back on that time, did your mom and you have conversations about diabetes ever? Did you talk about it personally? Or did you talk about it more like a caregiver to a child? You've probably heard me talk about US Med and how simple it is to reorder with US Med using their email system. But did you know that if you don't see the email and you're set up for this, you have to set it up. They don't just randomly call you, but I'm set up to be called if I don't respond to the email because I don't trust myself 100%. So one time I didn't respond to the email and the phone rings at the house. It's like ring, you know how it works. And I picked it up. I was like, hello. And it was just the recording. It was like, US Med. Doesn't actually sound like that, but you know what I'm saying. It said, hey, I don't remember exactly what it says, but it's basically like, hey, your order's ready. You want us to send it? Push this button if you want us to send it. Or if you'd like to wait, I think it lets you put it off like a couple of weeks, or push this button for that. That's pretty much it. I pushed the button to send it, and a few days later, box right at my door. That's it. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get your free benefits checked now and get started with US Med. Dexcom, Omnipod, Tandem, Freestyle. They've got all your favorites. Even that new eyelet pump. Check them out now at usmed.com/juicebox or by calling 888-721-1514. There are links in the show notes of your podcast player and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to US Med and to all of the sponsors. Today's episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes, who is making life with diabetes easier with the MiniMed 780G system. The MiniMed 780G automated insulin delivery system anticipates, adjusts, and corrects every 5 minutes. Real-world results show people achieving up to 80% time in range with recommended settings without increasing lows, but of course, individual results may vary. The 780G works around the clock so you can focus on what matters. Have you heard about Medtronic's extended infusion set? It's the first and only infusion set labeled for up to a 7-day wear. This feature is repeatedly asked for, and Medtronic has delivered. 97% of people using the 780G reported that they could manage their diabetes without major disruptions of sleep. They felt more free to eat what they wanted, and they felt less stress with fewer alarms and alerts. You can't beat that. Learn more about how you can spend less time and effort managing your diabetes by visiting medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox.
Yeah, we didn't really. I remember like when we got back from the hospital and I was sort of texting my friends, and I don't think I really, like, obviously I saw my mum giving herself shots throughout my entire life. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you just don't realise how big a part of someone's life something is. And I think when I got home, I was texting my friends like, oh, haha, I've got type 1 diabetes, because we've been joking about it for ages. And I just thought, it's injections and what, like, that's all it's going to be. And I just remember sort of going to sleep that night, and I've spoken to Mum about this since, and I just remember hearing her just sobbing downstairs. And I think in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this, like, if she's that upset over something, maybe this is a big thing for me, like, this is going to change my life.
Yeah.
Like, we never really spoke about that since. And at the time, obviously, I was too young to sort of register what she was going through as well as me, because right. It wasn't just about me, really. It was just, obviously, it was just a big thing for her as well. And I know she was guilty, and she said that to me since. But, I mean, it's like nothing anyone could control. So, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it was one of those where it was, yeah, a big sort of shock to her, because we've spoken as well, and she sort of said she didn't know it was genetic. She didn't know it was sort of something that could be sort of passed on. So it was never something she considered any of us could get, really.
Can I ask you, as an adult and since this, do you find yourself being more compassionate for people? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because, like, you know how you see this with your mom, and you don't realize what her life is, but you're living with her. Like, do you ever think like, oh, I took for granted what was happening to her? And does that like spread out to how you feel about other people?
I think so, because just getting that sort of viewpoint of, oh my God, like, I remember she'd have like lows and stuff, and it was just like, oh, just what happens to Mum. And then since that, off the back of it, and experiencing a low and experiencing the highs, and I can look back now and think none of us really, asked the questions or appreciated what she kind of went through to deal with it, and have 3 kids at the same time and work. And yeah, so I've always been a bit of an empath anyway, like, and maybe it did start from there, because I can sort of think back to that time, and I do think I do kind of take people's sort of experiences, emotions, and I hold them quite in high regard, really, when I am dealing with people. So right. It could very well sort of had a knock-on effect to how I am now.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I asked, because doing this, like making this podcast and actually having like a big Facebook group, having that big Facebook group and making the podcast has made me, listen, I don't think I'm famous, Marnie. I don't. Okay. But
I think you are.
Well, that's ridiculous. But a lot of people know who I am, right?
Yeah.
And I speak out loud, and those people then look at those things and make decisions about how I feel. They don't know me. They make decisions about what I'm thinking. And it's led me, like, even, I don't know, like you see a famous person and people are coming down on them, or a politician or anybody, and they're like, this is what they're doing. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You don't know. And this is your assumption based on a tiny bit of information.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, like, I'm not saying you can't have your opinion. Like, maybe you just don't like me. That's fine. Or maybe you look at a certain person out in the public eye and say, they seem to be a bad actor. They don't really want things to be calm, or what. I mean, whatever it is. There's certainly, you could make good decisions about people, but making snap decisions based on something you see on Facebook or in a newspaper or something like that, like, I don't do that anymore. Like, I just assume that I don't know enough to have a reasonable opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you need the full context, don't you, really, about who someone is, and you'll never know that if it is someone through Facebook. You're never going to know everything about them or the context of who they are. So
it's hard enough to know when you live with somebody their full context.
I know exactly. Yeah. That's not helping me out.
No, but for, like, even when there are people who are, like, I think kind of like viciously, like, speaking against me, I always still think, like, I don't know, like, maybe they saw something that really makes them think that they're the good guy in this story. You know what I mean?
I never understand that about people, because I did see your Facebook post before that you did. Well, it's this evening for me about those people that are just.
Did you?
Yeah, I saw that. I liked it.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, it's in my head today because a person who has been methodically posting me and wherever they can for years suddenly just showed up in my Facebook group acting nice, and I was like, what in the hell just happened? Like,
it baffles me.
It threw me for a loop. To use as an example, like, I have my assumption about what happened, but I don't know if I'm right or not. Like, I actually think that it's possible that they just kind of, like, you can get into a group by answering the questions correctly, and I don't see who comes in. So they get in, and here's my worst version of what happened. They snuck into the group to like snoop. And then in the middle of the night, a post came up and they got confused and didn't realize what group it was in. And they started responding to it. And now I see that they're there, and they probably didn't want me to know. But if you give them more generous, like, maybe they just thought, I keep saying stuff about this guy. Maybe I'm not right. I should go look. And maybe they were just there, and maybe they were about to send me a beautiful note that's like, hey, I've said some shit about you in the past, but, like, I see what you're doing here, I don't know. But the point is I don't know. So
I just find it all very confused. And I just think it's one of those things where it's just the internet and social media has made it so easy for people to be so horrible to each other just because it's behind the keyboard and it's not in real life. And I don't
know. I've seen it in families too. They see people are.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like it's easy for people no matter where they are. In fairness, what it really made me wonder, like, having this be a thing I'm, like, back room going through today, like, and I'm not going through it. I'm fine, by the way. But
good, yeah.
It made me wonder, like, I wonder if you were old enough to, like, look and go, oh, God, we didn't realize this about Mom. Then you have this personal experience, and if it actually informs your real life or not. That's what I was wondering.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, it's just, obviously, we'd come to eat, she'd get out needles, she'd have a cheeky shot, and then we'd all eat. And apart from sort of seeing her go low, that was the only thing I knew about it. Yeah. Mum has to inject at meals, and sometimes she goes low and she needs Lucozade, and that's it. Like, that was all sort of the information we ever took on or even asked about. We didn't even ask about it, to be fair. Like, it's only when it was, like, finger pricking time and we all wanted, like, to mess about that we'd actually ask things about it. I don't remember ever sort of sitting down having a frank conversation with her, just apart from, like, oh, when did you get diagnosed, or what was that like back when you were a kid? But I think that's as far as it went, really.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So do you head off to school soon after this?
I think I did, to be fair. I think I was back in the hospital the day after my initial diagnosis.
Why?
But again, I think
How did that happen?
I think it was because they just sent me off with insulin pens like, here's a sort of guesstimate. Bye, come back tomorrow and we'll actually sort you out. So, yeah. So got sent home and then went back the next day to sort of actually nailing some carb ratios and how much long acting to take. So I was back in sort of the day after. And then I think I was back in school quite quickly, to be fair. And again, I think it was the whole thing of my mum's got diabetes. So it was a bit like, well, this isn't going to hold you back. You can do everything you needed to do. So I do think I was home for a couple of days and then went back to school maybe the following week. Mm-hmm. I just remember the first sort of bus journey because I had to get the bus to get to school. And it was my first time being on my own since diagnosis. And I remember just sort of being stood on the bus and sort of I felt a bit dizzy or like I'd stumbled a bit when I got on the bus and I was like, oh my gosh, is this low blood sugar? Should I check? Am I going high? And I remember just doing about 8 finger prick checks on this sort of 20-minute bus ride because I just got so in my head about like, oh my gosh, am I going low? Am I going high? Am I going to make it to college? Am I going to die en route? I don't know what's happening. So I just remember sort of this panic was sort of a big factor when I was going back. But that subsided quite quickly as well. I just sort of, from what I remember, I think I slid into quite a good routine with it. Not good because my control was horrendous, but I sort of accepted it. Well, I thought I'd accepted it quite quickly.
You just said something and then disagreed with yourself 3 times in a row.
The only reason I've said that was because I convinced myself I'd accepted it. Mm-hmm. And it's only recently that I've actually accepted it.
So what did pretending to accept it look like?
Pretending to accept it was, I'll do my insulin, I'll do long-acting twice a day, do all my meal insulin, I'll prick my finger, and that's fine. But I didn't look after myself. So it was like I was meeting the bare minimum criteria to just keep myself ticking over. And I was still going out, drinking loads, like doing all sorts. And so that
wait. That's like, the first time I didn't understand. It's the first time I didn't understand. You're doing what?
Drinking and other things, like when you go to a party and stuff.
Other things, like drugs?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't want to be too specific, so I just thought I'll categorize it as other things one might do at a party. Yeah.
Well, I honestly wasn't sure if you meant drugs or sex. That's what I was wondering about.
I mean, all 3, but yeah.
Now's a nice time to say hi to your mom in case she's listening.
I know. Sorry, Mom. I think you knew anyway, so it's fine. So I did. Yeah, it just wasn't like it'd be things like it was basically to me. It was like I've heard other people say that's like looking after a little Tamagotchi, and as long as I just kind of maintained it a bit to the point where I wasn't really ill, that I was fine with that. So they'd go out drinking, and I'd probably do a test before I headed out, and throughout the night, I'd be like, oh, my mouth's really dry. Oh, I've been chugging loads of tap water. And then I'd sort of just rage shoot a load of insulin because I knew I was really, really high. And I'd come back down. Then by the time I did a test at like early hours in the morning, that a beautiful sort of number. So I could sort of convince myself that if I didn't test when I was high or low, it didn't count. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of my mentality with it. Like, if I flick through my blood meter and I see all these great numbers, like, granted, there were bizarre times of the day, to me, I was like, oh, those numbers are perfect. Like, it doesn't matter about the in-between things that I'm experiencing because my blood meter says it's all great and I'm doing really well.
Would you purposefully test when you knew your blood sugar was good so you'd see a good number?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it almost gave me that good feeling of, all right, I might have been high before, but look how great my number is now. Like, this is amazing. And same with sort of going to the hospital for my checkups. I'd go, I think I went every 6 months when I was sort of in adolescent clinic, and they made you write down a log of numbers. And I remember I'd be sat on the bus on the way there and just make up numbers. I'd look through my blood meter because I'd always have to check. I'd check that I had good numbers in there, and then I'd just fill in the gaps, and I'd write really great numbers. I'd throw in the odd high number so I didn't get too suspicious.
Marnie's like, here you were fantastic, and you missed a little and a better number.
Exactly,
It's just all to make it feel like it might be real.
Yeah, exactly. Because I needed it
Question though, at the end, doesn't the A1C reflect that that's not the case?
because of sort of I just shoot a load of insulin to sort of bring myself down. I did have quite a few, not bad lows, but lows throughout the day when I'd be sort of on that roller coaster. So I think the roller coaster helped make my A1C not look too. I think I was sort of in the, I want to say late 7s, early sort of 8 numbers when I was sort of around that time. So it didn't look horrendous to them. They were happy. They were sort of like, yeah, your A1C looks fine. Off you go.
How far did you go? Did you use different color pens? I've heard people.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I had I did. Yeah, fully. I had I'd have like a running out biro. I'd have like a gel pen. I'd have like a fountain pen, and I'd always switch it up so it didn't look really suspicious. So I'd be like, I'll do a couple of days in that blue biro. I'll do one day in black. So I could be like, oh yeah, just first pen I grabbed. Yeah, no, there was a lot of strategic, sneaky planning going on when I was back in those days.
Did you ever feel like I'm putting so much effort into pretending to do a good job? Maybe I could actually just do a good job.
No, because at the same time, I can now looking back and everything I've learned from you and online on Instagram and the Facebook posts, I'm like, I knew nothing back then. Like I didn't know anything. Like if I had a high or a low number, I'd always be like, shrug. It is what it is. That's just diabetes. It's fine. Like, I don't know what I've done wrong, whatever. So I just didn't have the attitude to want to sit down and find out what was going wrong or how I could be better. And again, I think it was sort of outwardly, it looked like I'd accepted it, but I'm always in denial about it before I actually got control. And I did then accept it properly.
Yeah. What made that happen? Do you know?
I think firstly was getting a CGM. So I got one, I think it was like the second year after sort of COVID lockdowns. I think it was 2021.
Okay. Well, that's pretty recently.
Yeah, it was, to be fair. And I know it was quite late getting it because I can't remember if my mum got one before me or not. And yeah, because my mum lives sort of in a different borough. And when you're in different boroughs, the hospitals can have completely different sort of funding to have these things in place. So I think where she lives, she got a Dexcom. Oh, was she on a Libra? I think she's on a Libra. And then she was sort of showing me and I was like, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to get in touch with my consultant. So I did. I ended up getting the Libra, which I've had since. And I think it was just the ability to not be able to ignore things like I was doing before. So I'd see these sort of highs in between meals or sort of going high overnight, but then I'd come back in range before the morning. And I just thought, oh my God, like, is this what he's doing in between these 4 times a day finger pricks I'm doing?
Right.
And I think it was just the knowledge of, that's not right. It shouldn't be like this way and I can do so much better. So I think that sort of got the ball rolling really. And then that was the time where you couldn't go out, you couldn't do anything. So I just was doom scrolling on social media for hours. And I remember seeing a random girl that I follow who's diabetic. She'd post about your podcast and I'd never listened to podcasts before ever. And I thought, well, I've got all the spare time and I like walking and running a lot. So I was like, I'll just get into it and start listening. And I was hooked from episode. And I've been listening to your podcast chronologically. So I'm on episode, I think it's like 650 at the minute because I refuse to do it out of order. So I've started episode 1 and I'm working my way through it in numerical order.
How long have you been at that?
I think 2021.
You're only halfway through.
I know, but
they're going to cure diabetes before you finish.
I know. Well, I feel like, when I see posts on your Facebook group, I'm like, whoa, spoilers, I'm not there yet. Like advancements in medicine and things like that. I'm like, whoa, I'm not at that bit yet.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, you're like, hey, I'm not going to be there for like 3 years. You can't tell me.
Stop posting. I'm not there yet.
That's so funny. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate you listening like this. So wait, this person you saw online, how did they motivate you again?
He literally just shared about your podcast.
Oh.
And it was, I think it was really randomly just some girl that went to university with my sister. My sister was like, oh, give her a follow. She posts about diabetes sometimes. So I was like, oh, will do. And I think she just shared just a link to your podcast. And I was like, oh, I'll check that out. I'll have a look.
If you said you're not a podcast person, right? So just meaning you weren't listening to podcasts. Did you know you weren't doing well? Like, what were you looking for? Were you why would you go listen, I guess?
I think I just wanted answers. So, like, something had happened. So I sort of had my breakfast. I'd carb count everything so precisely. And then I'd have my insulin. And then I'd be like, oh, I've nailed this. I can't wait for this beautiful wine after breakfast that's going to carry me through to lunch. And then my blood sugars would just shoot up or drop. And I'd be like, I just can't understand what I'm doing wrong. And I wasn't getting answers from sort of the hospital or anything, because it's very sort of cut and dry. Stick to your carb ratios, done. There is sort of opportunity to do week-long courses here called Daphne. I don't know what it stands for.
I know. Yeah, people bring up Daphne. By the way, you're in England, right?
Yes, yeah.
Why does your accent feel... I hope this isn't insulting.
Go on.
Why does it feel a little Scottish once in a while?
Oh, really? You know what? I was just in America last week and so many people said I sounded Irish.
Yeah. Okay.
A bit of a Celtic twang. I don't know.
Huh.
I think I'm very northern. It might be that maybe.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is from Scotland. And like when you just said, I don't know, when you just say, I don't know again.
Don't know.
You did it differently that time.
Yeah, because you put me on the spot. That's fine. I'm trying to be posh now.
You're like, oh, wait a second. A little too Adele. A little more.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if you were like near a border or like something like that. But
oh, no, I'm like slap bang near Manchester.
Well, slap bang is probably what I'm going to call the episode. But
slap bang, oh no. I know, I've been thinking that. I've been trying not to say anything too silly in case you're like, right, there's the title, thanks.
Die en route was in my head because you were like, I didn't want to die en route, like talking about being on the bus. And I'm like, that sounds too harsh.
Die en route, yeah, that's a bit morbid, that one, isn't it?
But slap bang seems very, like, people would be like, oh, what is this going to be about? And then,
this is going to be thrilling.
Yeah.
It's just me waffling.
Well, you said before we started, you're like, I'm going to waffle about, you said. And I said, ironically, I just had a waffle. And I think you thought I meant I was just off, like, speaking, like, weirdly and back and forth.
I did.
Yeah, but I had literally just eaten a waffle.
I did not. Yeah, that went right over my head.
My son and his girlfriend are here today. It's a holiday here today. They were like, we'll make breakfast. And I came downstairs right before we recorded. And they're like, wait, we made waffles. And I was like, okay. Then I came upstairs and 5 seconds later, you're just saying waffle over and over again. And I was like,
oh, no. Yeah, I did think you meant talking to me.
I thought somebody was watching me.
Yeah, oh, no. Well, I hope you enjoyed your waffle anyway.
Okay, so you saw someone online. You decided to try a podcast. It's great. And you were having trouble. Like you said, you were making boluses and then just thinking like, here it comes, my perfect blood, but it just wasn't happening. So what did you figure out?
No, it was just as I listened more and more, it was things like, like consider fat and protein and exercise and just everything you speak on really on the podcast that is a variable. And I'd never been taught that. And I started sort of listening more and more and experimenting and messing about with my doses, and it just sort of slowly I'd start seeing those beautiful smooth lines that I'd always wanted, or I could sort of take insulin and just be so 100% confident on where I'd be sat 3-4 hours later or overnight. Like my overnights were ridiculous. Like I could be getting a screaming high alarm at like 2 a.m. or low all night, and I just could not figure it out for life of me. So as I was listening, sort of putting things into practice, I was like, oh my God, like it can be doable. It is doable. Because I kind of had just accepted like, oh, this is just how it's going to be for the rest of my life. Like, and I think off the back of that as well, I'd had my eyes screened and I'd started getting background retinopathy in one of my eyes. And that just absolutely terrified me because me up until that point, I was untouchable and everything I was doing was enough to just keep me ticking over. And it was sort of that. And I just thought, oh my God, I need to look after myself, because I'd say that was 2 years ago. And that's only 11 years having diabetes and I'm already sort of getting things going wrong. So I just thought I need to get my shit together, basically.
I have a bunch of questions around this, but what did it feel like when you started getting results that you expected? Was it fun almost?
Yeah, it was almost like winning a game almost. I was like, oh my God, yes. And I'd see a great number and it's like I'm just winning at playing the game of diabetes. Like I was like, oh, look at this amazing score I've got today.
So then the question is what did it feel like when it was going wrong?
just like I'd be very harsh on myself when it was going wrong. And I'd always be like, you didn't need that extra piece of toast at breakfast that you didn't bolus long enough for. And I was very I think it was just relearning things that I just need to focus more on and not ignore. Like, I'd always sort of be told, like, if you're going to go off and exercise, be a bit higher. And listening to you and learning things, I realised that it doesn't have to be that way. I can have a beautiful, smooth line and do exercise and eat a massive carby breakfast. It doesn't have to be sort of one or the other.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. I guess you never really knew about your mom's management, right? She didn't share it with you. You didn't share yours with her.
Not so much, no. Obviously, she had a sort of a big part in helping me dose for things initially. Thing is, when I got diagnosed, I was put on pens straight away, and my mum was still on pig insulin, so she'd have to mix up 2 vials herself in a syringe.
Really?
Yeah. So that was 13 years ago, and I think. And again,
wait. 13 years ago? I got to stop you. 13 years ago, your mom was still using beef and pork insulin?
Yeah, she was. Yeah. She'd have the 2 vials that she had to mix up.
What the heck?
I know. And again, I think because she'd seen me go to hospital and get these pens, she'd gone straight back to her consultant and been like, where are my pens?
Yeah, how come no one mentioned this, right?
Yeah, I think from her point of view, seeing what I was getting and the glucose meters I was getting and the pens, she then went back and got put on pens as well I think it was straight away. It might have been a bit of a wait for her, but yeah, so she sort of off the back of that got something else out of it as well with me being diagnosed.
I've never heard anybody using it that recently.
Really? Yeah. She was literally using it even sort of past my diagnosis until she got sorted out with pens.
Well, I mean, if 13 years ago is 2010, is that right?
Yeah.
And your mom was diagnosed in the 70s?
Yeah.
Did they forget about her, or was she? Was she not going to a doctor? Maybe she was going to a time machine to go to her doctor, not a car.
I'm not sure. I don't know whether it was. Maybe she was just comfortable. Again, this is something I've not spoken to about. Maybe she was just comfortable with doing it, but then saw how easy it was. Just having pens and screwing.
The hell was she even getting it? Like that's. Are you sure about this?
Yeah, probably 100%. Watch me be absolutely telling lies now. You'll be like, I never did that. No, she was 100% on vial insulin with the, pork insulin.
Was it regular and MPH maybe?
Oh, I don't know. No, I always remember saying it was pork insulin that she was on.
Let me say this. Even if it was regular and MPH, still 13 years ago, what the hell? Right.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Oh, that's goodness. So she sees you. She's like, hey, apparently there's better stuff nobody told me about.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like, oh, that looks a lot easier than shaking up some vials and stuff.
Is it possible she got in one of those Harry Potter cars, went back in time, and that's when she went to the doctor? Because you do have the steering wheel on the wrong side. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah, I don't know how they work.
I don't know. It's possible, but yeah, she was. Yeah, but she got on pens quite quickly. I think after seeing me get pens. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All sorted out in the end.
Then now fast forward to a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you're like suddenly like putting in insulin. I'm like, watch this. Watch me not spike. Watch me go walk without getting low. Do you go tell her?
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, we've had a few conversations since, purely because I just wouldn't bring it up before because I knew I was doing badly and I didn't want questions to get turned back round to me and be like, how are you doing? And then I have to go, look at my amazing blood sugar log that's all fiction. So just one of those where I just thought, if I don't bring it up, no one's going to ask me too much about it. So off the back of that, since we have I did sort of say, oh, I've started listening to this, and have you ever thought about what you're eating and like how things are digested and fat and protein and all this? And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah. But she's, I think she's sort of started doing her own research as well. So she's sort of very susceptible she walks a lot, like she does a lot of exercise. And because she exercises so much, she does have quite a few sort of like low blood sugar sort of experiences.
Yeah.
And I think she has asked, we're both MDI, and she's sort of gone and asked about a pump because then she can sort of microdose herself with basal or shut it off when she's walking.
Right.
At the minute, she's just, But again, it's kind of one of those where over here, I think you need really good control to get a pump, which is what she was told.
Okay.
But then her argument is, but I want a pump to get the really good control, because at the minute it's just a lot of hypos of exercise and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those where you've really got to justify asking for a pump, and there's always a lot of pushback on it, really. But yeah, we've had conversations since about sort of how's it going, or this is what I've started doing. Have you considered this as well? So yeah, we talk more about it now, definitely.
Very nice. Your note says that you wanted to talk about like anxiety and having panic attacks, being afraid of being judged. Can I hear about that?
Yes. So 2023 was the year of the panic attack for me.
Big year. Is that on the Chinese calendar I'm not aware of?
Oh God,
No.
definitely not. Basically, so just for a bit of context, I have never had a stomach bug since I got diagnosed, which is bizarre because I used to work in a primary school and in the office, so any sickly child got sent my way, and I've been thrown up on a million times. If I had £1 for every time I've been thrown up on, I'd be a millionaire. Yeah, and I just never had experienced a stomach bug ever, and it was sort of a first birthday party, and we went, and everyone got deadly sick off the back of it, like really bad vomiting bug. And I remember sort of getting up the day after the party, and I was like, oh Jesus, I can't get my blood sugars up at all. And I was just eating. Went out for a nice breakfast, and I was like, I'm going to be really conservative with my insulin with this, because maybe it was just all like drinking the night before at this party, and I was like, right, I'll just be conservative, I won't do too much. I just remember all day we were driving back home, and I was like, oh, I just feel a bit rough now, and my blood sugars are still tanking. And got back home. Second my mum dropped me off, I was like the floodgates opened. I was just violently unwell. But as I was like, my boyfriend was home, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm actually getting really worried now, because I was just chugging juice after juice. And this is the thing, I hadn't got to this bit on your podcast yet, so I didn't know about stomach bugs. So I was like, I hadn't got to that part yet. So I was just like, oh my God, like I think we might need to go to hospital, because I'm starting to panic a bit now. So I went to hospital, which was an absolute waste of time. So I had I think I drank about 5 juice boxes at this point, and then proceeded to throw them all up. And I was getting a bit worried, and I tried calling we've got like a non-emergency number over here. So instead of calling like 999, you call a different number, and they put you through to sort of non-emergency, but you still get to speak to someone straight away. And I was kind of like, can I have glucagon for this? Because I think I had heard inklings about microdosing glucagon, but they were just like, nope, no, you can't. You only do it if you're unconscious. We can get you an ambulance, but it'll take about 4 hours. So I was like, oh my gosh. So my boyfriend ends up driving me to our local emergency department, and I got seen, and they just gave me a handful of anti-sickness pills and sent me on my way. I think I was borderline DKA when I went in, because I remember just driving home with my boyfriend. I could not keep my eyes open. Like I just felt drained. Like my boyfriend was like, your eyes were literally like rolling into the back of your head. You were that lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
So went home, managed to get myself sorted out. My mum, bless her, she then got hit with the same sickness bug the same evening, and she was admitted to hospital for 2 days on drips. And sort of when I was speaking to her a couple of days later, I was like, I think I should have been admitted to hospital as well, rather than just sent away.
They gave me a handful of pills and shooed me away.
Yeah. So thankfully I wasn't sick again after I went to A&E. And when she sort of pricked my finger, she was like, oh, you're 4.1, which I think is like 75 for you guys. She was like, no, you're fine. Bye. Here's your anti-sickness pills. Enjoy. So that happened, and took me a bit of time to feel right again. And I was like, all right, that's behind me now. That was grim, but we're back on track again. And then I went to another first birthday party in September. Oh no, was it November? And the exact same thing happened again. So I'd never had a sickness bug ever. And then 2 in 1 year. And this time I was a bit more prepared, and I was like, I'm going to, oh gosh, it was horrible. I didn't have anything. I had a pot of jam, and I was just rubbing it into my gums in between being sick. But it worked like a charm. And I made sure to keep drinking water when I could, sipping, And I knew that I needed to have insulin on top of that. So this time, managed to stay away from the hospital, felt a bit more prepared. So managed to get through that as well. And I was less panicky that time. So I was like, right, okay, surely this can't happen again anytime soon. So went through all that last year, and then the anxiety started creeping in. So if I'd had a beautiful day of blood sugars that were trending low, but not sort of going hypo,
right,
I'd start having this thought at the back of my mind, like, it's going to happen again. You're going low because you're going to be sick again later.
Oh.
And it's not the being sick that was scaring me. It was just how helpless I felt in both those instances. So
just sitting there with your Winnie the Pooh jar, rubbing your gums, trying not to get too low.
Literally, I don't think I had any pants on as well when all this was happening. So it was very Winnie the Pooh-esque.
I mean, you said jam. I wish you would have said honey, but nevertheless.
I know. Oh no, I did have honey sachets as well. Just sort of, So it worked.
Before we dive into your anxiety about like, oh my God, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get low. I have I'm going to forget to say this. So a while ago, you said if I had a pound for every time a kid vomited on me, I'd be a millionaire. I thought, how come you measure a pound, but then you go to million? Like, why? Like, shouldn't you? And then I did the math.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you say if I had a pound for every time a kid vomited on me, I'd have 446 imperial tons?
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, sorry.
No, but I mean, do you see what I'm asking?
100%. I think it's the waffle thing over again, isn't it?
But the term for $1 million in like British like parlance is $1 million.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, I could have called it quids instead. That would have been even more confusing.
That would have made me think of Quidditch, and then that would have taken us down a whole horrible road.
Thing. Yeah.
But it's interesting that it's like a pound is like, I know a pound is money for you, but it's a weight here. And then you go, and then when you go to $1 million, you go to anyway.
Yeah, the maths ain't mathing. Yeah.
It just don't make sense is what I'm saying.
Sorry. I'd be very rich, I should have said.
I just wish you would have said I'd have 446 imperial tons.
Yeah, imagine. You'd have to do the reverse math, though. I feel like that'd be more confusing.
I had to ask ChatGPT. I was like, hey, figure this out real quick. Because I wanted to keep listening to your story. I didn't want to be the one doing the math.
Oh, no. Yeah. I'd be very rich.
So even if you had like a great day.
Yeah.
You started to go back to that place of like, I'm going to get sick. My blood sugar's going to be low. I'm be sitting around helpless. Now you're back on the bus again.
Yeah, literally. And it was like, it'd happen every now and then I'd do this thing where I'd be like, oh, I'll just quickly drink half a juice just to check that things are digesting as they should be. And I'm not going to go high and I'm not going to go low and be sick. So I'd got into this really bad pattern of I'd have really nice graphs. And I just couldn't rationalise in my head that I'd put in the work to have the nice graphs because this anxiety was just clouding everything. So I knew that I'd dosed for breakfast perfectly and factored in protein and all that stuff. But the anxious thoughts were going, no, you didn't. You don't know that. You're going low because you're going to be sick again. You're going to be in that helpless position again where you need help and you're in that horrible place. Started sort of stacking up and it just got worse and worse. And I was at work when I had my first panic attack. And again, I'd had a day where I'd tried a new breakfast. I didn't have any sort of nutritional information about it. So I'd guesstimated and I'd nailed it. But I then was doubting the fact that I didn't have nutritional information. I was like, how can you have nailed it? Like, you've completely guessed and you've got it right. No, you haven't got it right. You're going to be sick later because you've got perfectly lovely low blood sugars now.
Were you having compulsive thoughts about anything else?
No, it's just not in my nature
just
like that. Yeah, it was
wow.
purely this. I just got so fixated on it. And to the point where then I was in work and I'd had this breakfast and I was drinking a juice and I thought, that juice will sort me out. I'll have done my testing where I'm like, drink the whole juice even though you know it's going to send you high. And it didn't. So then again, the anxiety was building. I was like, oh my gosh, you thought that was going to happen, but the low blood sugars are still there. And they weren't even really low. They were just sort of nicely sort of tickling my low alert.
Yeah.
And then I went and had lunch. And again, a lunch I'd not had before, no nutritional information. And I ate that. And the same thing happened again where I'd just sort of guessed. And I'd guessed very well. but my brain was saying, you've not nailed it. This is the low blood sugars because you're going to be sick later. And I remember just sort of being sat at my desk and I thought, oh my God, like, I can't breathe. The room's closing in. And I just like ran off to the toilet, just had a full on sort of meltdown. Ended up having to sort of ring my manager and be like, I need to go home, basically. Like, I just need to be somewhere safe. Like, not because I live sort of an hour's drive away from work. And all I could think of was like, I just need to get home and be somewhere where someone can keep an eye on me. Someone knows what's going on. Like, my boyfriend was at home. And it was just like, so that was the first time it happened. And then I had another time where my boyfriend was on holiday and I started sort of getting anxious the week before I was going, like, oh, you're going to be all on your own. If it happens, like if you get a stomach bug and you're low, no one's there to help you. And I just got so anxious to the point where he'd got on his plane and gone, and I just couldn't eat because my stomach was in knots. I was just checking my blood sugars all the time. I was just thinking, oh, who's most likely to pick up the phone at 2 a.m. if I do start being sick and I need help and I need driving somewhere? And it just became this horrible, like, overshadowing thing in my life that just,
thoughts
really
you couldn't stop having. So I want to ask you how you got rid of them, if you did. But first, I want to point out that you've said in the nicest way, like the dirtiest double entendre thing that anyone's ever said on the podcast. You said tickling my low alerts.
Oh no! I know I didn't say it. I thought I could have thought of a better word.
I just thought, I
thought it was just a nice way of putting it.
It was a nice way of putting it.
Oh, no.
I was like, oh my God, somebody heard that wrong.
Oh, it sounds like a terrible child line, doesn't it, or something?
I'm too embarrassed to tell you what I just did.
Oh, I'm going to need to know now.
Oh my God.
But you don't have to.
No, it's just.
No, you don't have to. I feel like, no, it's fine.
Hold on. It's so stupid. I gave my chameleon this kind of worm that he doesn't seem to love, but I put it in there to see if he would like it. And his doors are open right now because I want him to have some air.
Yeah.
And the worm just like went all the way to the bottom of the cage, then crawled out of the cage, fell on the floor, and was walking across the carpet. And I thought, I'll just get that when I'm done. And then I thought, what if it goes somewhere and I can't find it? I'm like, let me just go get it now. Anyway, I'm just embarrassed because I have a chameleon and I'm an adult. But
no, I love that. That's
he's
great.
lovely.
I love it.
Do you still feel that way? And if not, how did you get past it?
No, I feel so much better now about it. And I did start going down the route of, I think I need a therapist to really help me with this. Mm-hmm. It just felt all consuming. And I did sort of have like a little like taster session, and she was like, this is what we'll work through, stuff like this. And I thought, oh yeah, I think I should probably give this a go. And I was like, I'm going on holiday, I'll let you know when I'm back. And I just had like the simplest conversation ever with my mum. And we were sort of visiting family. And again, this is another sort of sidebar tangent to the whole like anxiety thing. It made me really wary of hanging out with kids. And like, I don't have kids myself, but like I've got a few sort of younger sort of family members, and it was getting to the point where I'd be really sort of like wary about like, oh, don't want to get too close just in case they're ill and then they make me ill. So we'd sort of gone visiting my sister and her little girl. I was just saying to my mum, like, did you ever get really scared after what happened to us both last year? Like, is it not sort of set you back or anything? She just looked at me and she was like, no, because we're both here, and why would you let that stop you living your life? And that's all it took, just for my mum to go, won't be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And it hasn't been the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and we're both here, and you can't let that stuff stop you living your life. And it was almost like the simplest thing ever. And I just hadn't thought of it like that.
Your mom's like, way worse crap's going to happen. Don't worry.
Well, I mean, I knew what she meant. And it was like, wow, yeah, you're right, actually. That's all it took, really. And I think, like, I've followed a few sort of people on Instagram who've got diabetes, and a few of them have posted about the same thing. And I think it was just the whole, oh, this has happened to other people and they're fine. And yeah, it might happen to me again. It probably will at some point in life. And my mum was like, but you know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, it's just that easy. Why didn't I think of this 6 months ago when I was panicking all the time?
Do you have glucagon in your house?
I do, yeah. I've got a big stash of it now after the vomiting.
We just moved Arden into a different college situation.
Yeah.
And we were like, she and I left her room to go downstairs to get some more stuff to bring upstairs. And we were in the elevator by ourselves. And I was like, hey, in case I haven't said this recently, I'm just going to say this. And she goes, okay. I said, you can give yourself glucagon. It's not just for when you're having a seizure. Yeah. And I was like, but if you find yourself in a situation when you're like, oh God, no, I'm not going to stop this. I was like, it's okay. And she was like, oh, I know. And I was like, all right. And I only brought it up because she's in a setting now where she's in a multiple room. So she's by herself in a bedroom, but in an apartment with multiple bedrooms, but everyone's doors lock when they close them.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
So in her last setting, like her roommates could have walked into her room if they wanted to.
Yeah. Check. Yeah. She needed help.
And she was like, okay. And I was like, all right, just don't forget that part. And she's like, okay. And then that was sort of the end. Meanwhile, like lows are very infrequent for Arden.
Yeah.
But still, you don't know, right? You know,
it's just better knowing, isn't it? Just double checking.
It's never happened once when I thought, oh, I bet you Arden's going to get really low today. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always the curveball lows, isn't it? Where they just
you're like, hey, what just happened? But so your mom just gave you some extra perspective, you think?
Yeah, I think it was, I just felt very alone with it because obviously I'd speak to my friends and they could sympathise and speak to family and they could sympathise, but it was almost like that feeling of pure like helplessness. Like I'm doing everything I've been taught to do to fix low blood sugar and it's not working. And it just felt like that utter lack of control was just spiraling me out. And just for the fact it came, and I had spoken to my mum since we were both ill and she'd sort of touched on like, yeah, no, just carry on. But it was just that moment where she was like, you can't let this just like consume you. And I just thought, oh my God, yeah, you're so right.
Good for you. Well, good for her too. She gave you some good advice.
Definitely. It's just like I needed someone else in the same situation to say it to me. Just like you can't put your life on hold because you're this scared.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy if like 3 years from now you got to an episode of the podcast that said that and you're like, oh, if only I would have found that sooner.
If only. No, to be fair, I'd actually posted in the Facebook group about it, but I know it's very specific niche anxiety. And again, I think I've done a bit of a waffly post because I was like, oh, I don't like, has anyone experienced this? And to be fair, a few people had sent me episodes to listen to just about, like fear of hypos and hypo anxiety and stuff. So that did help with the feeling,
the functional stuff, but not the psychological part of it.
Yeah, I think it was more just how specific the things that
your
I
problem
needed
was.
To hear was. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the episode called "Worry is a Waste of Imagination"?
Is it pre-episode 650? Because if it is, I haven't.
Let me find out. That's an interesting question.
I think it might be because that rings a bell, that title.
It always occurs to me. I don't know where I heard that first. Worry is a Waste of Imagination is episode 156. Is just
lovely.
Yeah. Just the idea that when you're worried about something, you are just making up a scenario in your head and deciding to treat it like it's actually going to happen. And now yours is a little more specific because this has happened to you in the past, but but sort of, I mean, it's not the same, but it is the same. And so I can see that though, get that in your head, but that's not really the crux of the problem. The crux of the problem is that, and I'm guessing just from listening to you, it's that spot where your effort won't overwhelm the problem and there's a finite end to it because you could have a seizure. And what do you do? Like, right? Like that's where the fear is right there. Is that right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's just the lack of control. Like you said, everything you've ever been taught to fix that is not fixing it. And then the panic sets in because you're like, oh no, this usually works. Like, oh dear, this isn't going the way I wanted it to go or planned.
And I don't have unlimited time here.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Right. You're like, there is more, like, I'm going to run out of time before I get this fixed.
Oh, yeah. Almost like, it's like sense of sort of impending doom. Like, you sort of get an inkling of that anyway when you're sort of having a hypo, just sort of the doom feeling, but it's just that times a million.
Anybody who's had like a awake conscious seizures, low blood sugar incidences that they've talked about on the podcast, they all mention this moment where their last thought is, I can't stop. It's coming and I can't stop it. Right. Oh, yeah.
Literally, this is me clocking out. Bye.
Yeah. Well, that's not imagination. That's a real worry. And I think we don't talk about that very often in the space, like in general. And I try to bring it up periodically. You'll hear me in a couple of years tell a story about being at this event where I was speaking in front of probably 300-400 people, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were newly diagnosed adults or the spouses of those adults. And I just brought up hey, why it's so important to have glucagon around. And when I started, people were like, why? What is that? And I'm like,
oh, God.
Wait, what? And then as you explain it to them, you could see they were like, whoa, no one mentioned that.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I've had glucagon from the get-go ever since diagnosis, but I don't, touch wood, I've never had to use it. I have had 2 seizures before, but I've never...
How did you get out of them?
I don't know how I got fixed, actually.
Were you by yourself?
The first one, I wasn't. And my friend poured a whole bottle of full sugar lime cordial all over my face. So when I woke up upside down in my bed later on that day, I stunk of limes. And then the second time, I think I was on my own, and I think I knew it was going to happen. So this was after a night of drinking and being silly. So I drank a whole bottle of Lucozade, and I think the timing was I had a seizure, and then I started coming back out of it the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just took myself to bed and just,
Wow. Yeah.
I know.
Funny, that didn't make you worried.
No, exactly. Oh, yeah, but when
you're older now.
You're just so silly and carefree, aren't you? You just don't care. Yeah. Now I'm old and just worry about everything.
Yeah, when you're 17, you're like, I almost died. Woo!
Yeah, literally. Like, my sister came upstairs and she was like, what has gone on downstairs? Like, she was like, there's Lucozade everywhere. There's like a big stain on the rug. And I was like, yeah, no, I think I might have had a seizure last night. But I was like, well, fine now. What's for breakfast?
Yeah, what are we doing now? Right. And
exactly,
now you're like,
for today?
I want to live. Right. So
literally, if I can stave that off, I will do. Yeah, it's mad though, just the attitude shift of being a very, very silly 17, 18-year-old and for now, I
think that's just maturity or time, or is there something that happened to you that made you think I should value my life more? Or
yeah, I think it's just the whole, and I think this is for everyone really. Well, I don't know if everyone feels like this, but I think just you just feel so untouchable when you're young. You just think that, bad things happen to older people, or it's older people that get ill or pass away and things like that. And I just think you just feel like you're so untouchable that you can get away with all this stuff. And then as you get a bit older,
you're like, that's not true.
And you just realise that it's not true. You need to really look after yourself. You are in charge of yourself, and it's only you that can be sort of putting that effort in and making sure that you're going to have a long and healthy life. Wait
till you get older and you wake up injured. I'll tell you, I'm not kidding. You wake up from being asleep and you're like, oh, I hurt myself while sleeping.
Oh, no.
That's when you realize, oh, I'm old.
You know what? I think that's starting already for me. I've got a recurring nighttime neck injury.
Recurring nighttime neck injury.
Oh, yeah.
We had to move Arden out of an apartment very quickly. So we went on this 700-mile drive, got there, ate food and went to sleep. And then got up at 5 a.m, packed the car, and then drove 700 miles home again. Right?
Oh no!
But it was horrifying. But the part of it that is relevant to this is that we got there, and I realized she had brought a friend with her. Yeah, she had a bed that she could sleep in, but her friend needed a place to sleep too.
Oh,
and then there was no other furniture because she hadn't fully moved into this space yet.
No.
So I'm like, this will sound pejorative to some people, but I think it's just accurate. She's a girl, so she has a lot of pillows. So I said, let's just lay these pillows out in the shape of a mattress, and I'll tuck a sheet around them to hold them kind of tight, and I'll sleep on the floor. It's no big deal. And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, where do you, this is it. I'm not going to make you guys sleep. Holy Christ, for a week, my neck.
I'm not surprised. You always look at a makeshift bed like that and you think, that'll be fine. And then you sort of get on it and you're like, oh no, I'm not sleeping tonight at all.
Hey, listen, this is just for one person, but the guy who edits the show, he just went on like this like bike ride where he camped out in this like small tent that he carried. And I texted him, I'm like, are you all right? I said, did you sleep in that?
Yeah, for choice. You chose this. Yeah.
I said to him too, I was like, you're old, you got to be careful.
Oh yeah, no, my camping days are behind me. 100%.
So let me ask you, so then this last bit here that I was going to ask you about is like fear of judgment. Are you being judged or you're afraid you're being judged, and judged about what?
No, I guess this is sort of from when I first got diagnosed. It was, again, sort of the thing of not accepting it properly. And outwardly, you could ask some of my friends and they'd have forgotten I've got diabetes because I just hide it. And it'd be things like we'd sort of be sat in the school cafeteria and everyone's got the lunch, and I would literally, sometimes I'd get my insulin pen out to do an injection, and people would be like, oh, you're doing that here? Like, what's all that about? What are you doing? And I just got into this sort of mentality of, I'll take myself off to the toilet, I'll do my insulin in the toilet away from everyone. And it was sort of, it became a pattern then of me just like worrying that other people are going to be looking and I suppose judging me. I don't know what they'd be judging me for, but just sort of like, it just felt very like all eyes were on me every time. And probably no one was looking at me, but I just had this feeling of, hey, I pull my insulin pen out, everyone's looking at me, everyone's looking at the needle, everyone's whispering, everyone's wondering what I'm doing. So I did have that a lot, sort of coming out of my teenage years, early 20s, where again I'd just secretly inject, I'd secretly test my blood sugars, or I would ignore it because I didn't want people seeing me using all my equipment.
So it was kind of self-imposed. You just were
it was fully, just a narrative in my head that, I just created. And again, I think it was just trying to feel a bit like normal. I don't know if normal is the right word, but just like everyone else, really.
Just didn't want people looking at you.
Yeah, I hate attention. I hate attention. So I was like, if one person looks at me, that's it, game over. I'm going to be in the toilet eating my lunch, basically. But it was just, it was something I had created in my head, this narrative that, oh, people are judging you, but really, they weren't. They probably want to ask me questions about it and be interested in it, but I just hid it from everyone. Like, didn't hide it from my friends, but just, I wouldn't give too much away about it, really.
Okay. And now you don't feel that way any longer?
Oh, no. I will make eye contact with someone on the bus and inject. Like, look them dead in the eye.
It's happening. Watch me do it.
Yeah, literally. If I see you looking, I will hold the eye contact until you look away. Yeah, so I'm not fazed about stuff like that at all anymore.
Good.
And I've got my Libra as well, so I'm more than happy having that out and about. I love it when people come up to me and ask me about it. Like, we went on holiday to Vegas last week, and I was literally like nudging my boyfriend, like, hey, there's Dexcom over there. Hey, there's no Omnipod over there. And I'm like, oh, and just having like really nice chats with people that are just spot you centre, and you'd be like, oh, you too? And then you'd have just like a really nice conversation. I love showing it off basically now, like just, and then spotting like diabetics in the wild and going speaking to them.
I just saw in that post we talked about earlier today.
Yeah.
This person said, I was just on a flight. I met two men, both had type 1. This person has a child with type 1. They said that we had the best conversation, but then you came up and I was like, oh, I came up?
Oh,
Finally, the conversation's gone the way it should. But they talked for a while. They all knew the podcast. Like three strangers on an airplane. I was like, that's lovely.
It is that sense of community though, because like I said, I went to Vegas last week and I did a post in your Facebook group, just sort of being like, I've never been to America before. What should I be wary of? Like, what are good snacks? I basically wanted to immerse myself in going full American. I was like, what are really good low snacks that I can go and buy loads of? And it actually made me a bit emotional because it was just the outpouring of people being so helpful, but just wishing me to have like the best holiday and check out these amazing recommendations. And I ended up saving loads on my phone. And I just thought how nice that people take like 5 minutes out of the day to just be so helpful and want to help. And I was just telling my boyfriend about it. I was like, it just feels like such a nice space where everyone's got each other's back and everyone's just so willing to help.
It's a mass example of this experience you had with your mom, honestly.
Yeah.
You're just like,
yeah.
I understand their situation now. And then you can just have more space for it, or, you know, because it's not that you're not empathetic for other people in general, but like, you just really don't know the depth of it and every person that saw that thought, I know how this girl feels. Like, she's going to get on a plane and fly to a completely different place. And she has diabetes. Yeah.
It was just really nice because everyone was just like, oh, go here, try this. You'll have the best time. Have a great holiday. And I just thought, oh, like just all these strangers just being so lovely. Mm-hmm. And it was just really, it just warmed my heart.
Beautiful. All right. We're going to stop there. I might call this episode Slap Bang. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think you should.
Because the bus came up a lot, by the way.
Yeah. I didn't learn to drive until 3 years ago. And that's probably why.
Oh, okay. It's like, well,
I've been in a lot of buses in my time.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen a shrunken head driving the bus, or that doesn't really happen, right?
No, unfortunately not. Not in real life.
Okay. Yeah. If you say so.
I'm still holding out hope, though, one day. Yeah.
Let me ask you before I let you go, like, you're coming here? What are you coming for? Just like holiday or for something specific?
We actually came for a wedding. Oh. Yeah. Holiday/wedding.
Oh, nice. Oh, did you have a good time? Lovely. Did you find us to be horrible? What was your situation?
No, it was amazing. I loved it. It was just crazy. It felt like a bit of a fever dream, Vegas. Just like, I couldn't quite grasp that it was real life, but it was such a good holiday. It was unreal. Yeah,
I've never been there, but New York has that same feeling when you stand in the middle of Manhattan. Have you been to New York ever?
No, we haven't. No, I think that's the next one when we sort of venture back over to America. Yeah,
kind of open up your field of vision, and you're like, "Is this all really here? Like, who put this here?" You know,
great. There's just stuff going on all the time. I loved it. Yeah, it was glad. So good.
Good, excellent. All right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate this very much. Thank you for doing this with me. Can you hold on 1 second for me?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in today, and thanks to Medtronic Diabetes for sponsoring this episode. We've been talking about Medtronic's MiniMed 780G system today, an automated insulin delivery system that helps make diabetes management easier day and night. Whether it's their meal detection technology or the Medtronic extended infusion set, it all comes together to simplify life with diabetes. Go find out more at my link, medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox. A huge thanks to US Med for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Don't forget, usmed.com/juicebox. This is where we get our diabetes supplies from. You can as well. Use the link or call 888-721-1514. Use the link or call the number, get your free benefits check so that you can start getting your diabetes supplies the way we do from US Med. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate your loyalty and listenership. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Are you starting to see patterns, but you can't quite make sense of them? You're like, oh, if I bolus here, this happens, but I don't know what to do. Should I put in a little less, a little more? If you're starting to have those thoughts, if you're starting to think, this isn't going the way the doctor said it would, I think I see something here, but I can't be sure. Once you're having those thoughts, you're ready for the Diabetes Pro Tip series from the Juicebox Podcast. It begins at episode 1000. You can also find it at juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu, and you can find a list in the private Facebook group. Just check right under the featured tab at the top. It'll show you lists of a ton of stuff, including the Pro Tip series, which runs from episode 1000 to 1025. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. wrongwayrecording.com.